Welcome to the Dividend Talk podcast, episode 132, an interview with Bob Lay. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, Dividend Talk is the place to be for insights, analysis, and unsalted advice on how to make the most of your money through dividends with our own unique European flavour. I'm your co-host, Engineer My Freedom, and today I am joined by European DGI. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive into the world of dividend investing and discover the power of passive income. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and join our community on Facebook at Dividend Talk. See you on the inside. I am delighted to have Bob from Tawcan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You can correct me, but Bob, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, it's pronounced Tawcan.
Excellent. My pronunciation can be a little bit off, particularly in Europe. We've got lots of European names, so please forgive me if I get anything wrong. But maybe just before we get started into the news of the week, Bob, if you could just give us a brief overview of who you are and what you do, just for some of our European audience.
Sure. So my name's Bob. I'm from Canada. I'm I guess, second generation immigrant. Came to Canada with my parents when I was a teenager. I was born in Taiwan. Yeah, I've been writing on my blog, Tawcan.com, for, I think this year is the 9th year. So in blogging world, that's like eternity, basically, right? So
Ancient.
yeah, so it's I've been around and yeah, I primarily do blogging and appear on podcasts and videos here and there. Yeah, it will be fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
must
we're
also compliment you for that, because I think I started dividend investing in 2014, and it was Jason Fieber at the time, and some of the lads. And I also already remember, I mean, around those years already visiting your blogs and getting inspired. I think there was one guy that was always sharing all the total dividend income from many bloggers, and I believe yours was also at times on the list.
Right, there was I mean, the Dividend Diplomats did that for a while.
Yes,
There was
yeah.
another guy in, I think he was in Europe, that was sharing that every month as well. So
Polly's Dividend, I believe.
yeah, that's
Polly's
I think
Dividend.
so.
Yeah. Good old days of the dividend investing community via blogging.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So maybe it's a good place then to take us back to your first day starting. Do you remember how you started investing and how did that look?
Yeah, I mean, I started investing when I was, I think I had an investing account when I was in university even, and I was just, investing per my dad's recommendation. Didn't really know too much. And then when I graduated from university, started working, I was kind of dabbling around, didn't really know what I was doing. I invested in mutual funds and, penny stocks and, momentum. I took a bunch of courses on momentum trading techniques and, the channel breaking, the seasonality, like all those techniques, right? I would say the very first dividend stocks that I purchased was called ING in Canada. ING used to be like a bank. I think it's actually a Dutch bank, maybe. But the ING listed in Canada was the financial like insurance company. And back then I didn't know anything better. So I was like, oh, ING, it must be the banks. I bought it, and that was right before the financial crisis. So it tanked like 40-50%. But back then ING was yielding about 3%, like yield on cost, I think, right? So I was like, well, if I if I sell it and take a loss of 40-50%, and then put in GIC, which is the guaranteed income. I can't remember what GIC stands for, but it's basically like the high savings rate savings account. I would, because back then when financial crisis started, the interest rate went down. So if I were to put the money in GIC, I would maybe get like 2%, 1.5%. So when I did the calculation, I was like, well, I might just leave the money in ING, and I didn't need the money, so I just left it there and collected dividend, and eventually it recovered, right? So ING, if I look at our portfolio right now, I think it changed name, now it's called Intact Financial. I think we are looking at like 3 or 4 baggers for Intact Financial, right? So that kind of early on gave me the idea, hey, dividend investing is great, because even if the stock goes down, the stock price goes down, I could afford to just wait. Like if I don't need the money, I could just afford to wait and collect the dividends, and then wait till the stock price recover, right? So for example, if you invest in, I don't know, Netflix per se, and the Netflix price drops by 50%, you don't get extra income. You kind of have to wait for it to recover before you could sell to make a profit, right? Whereas dividend investing is like, oh, okay, the stock goes down, so what? I'll collect my dividend paychecks every quarter or every month, depends on what kind of stock it is, and then just wait for it to recover. And that, for the most part, has worked pretty well for us, right? And that's where dividend investing is great. Like I think we all have heard a lot about this index investing versus dividend investing debate, where people are like, oh, you're investing dividend stock, that's stupid. Why not just do index? But there's so much behind the psychology of investing, right? And that's why when I tell people, like, you don't really know how you'll react until you start investing with your hard-earned money. It's totally different when you're playing. Like, I know there are online trading simulations where they give you, I don't know, like 50,000. You could see how well you do, but that's completely different than investing with your own $50,000, right? Like, if your $50,000 all of a sudden drops down to 25,000, a lot of people can't sleep at night, and that's a problem, right? So
you start calculating how many hours it took you to get there,
exactly.
or how many years.
So this is where dividend investing, I believe, has a leg up compared to index investing, right? Because you're getting this regular distribution, and it makes you sleep better at night. I think, at least personally, that's how I feel.
Even to the contrary, over time, I actually get sad when the prices go up of my holdings and happy when they go down, because I can get more of this quality at a lower price and a better yield.
Right. But I think, like, we're hybrid investors. So we invest in both dividend paying stocks and index. I do see index because you kind of want to do best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
So index gives you that diversification, both asset wise and geographically, right? Whereas individual dividend stocks give you that income aspect. So, some people prefer one over the other. We kind of meet in the middle, and we wanted both.
So in Canada, can you just buy American ETFs? You
can. You could buy both in the Canadian market and the US market. Now, if you buy US stocks that pay distribution or dividends, there's usually a 15% withholding tax. But if you hold US stocks in we call it RSP, Registered Retirement Savings Plan, it's kind of like the 401k of US, then that 15% withholding tax doesn't apply.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because we can buy US stocks, right? But in Europe, we have this kind of thing that, our governments, they think we're a bunch of noobs. So what they did is they introduced some policies. So every ETF needs to have a key investor document And that's why we don't have access to, for instance, the Vanguard dividend growers in ETF. We don't have access to the Schwab one, because they need to be registered UCITS in Europe. So we get all the inferior ones at double the costs effectively.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so for us, ETF investing is not so attractive from that point of view, because if you then go to all the ETFs and you analyze them, most of them are not growing their dividends, actually the dividend income over time.
Right.
So that's the pity thing about it. And if there are one or two of them, like the ticker symbol FUSD, but then they are like yielding 1 point something %. So it's again not really allowing you to retire early if you wanted to.
Right.
So we are always jealous about this.
Yeah, for sure.
And then how much this how is it the fees, the transaction fees and the commissions play a role in your investing? Because of course, I guess when you started, how much did you pay for a commission at the time? And when was it? 2008, 2007?
Yeah, it was $9.99 a trade, I think. I think in Canada depends on the financial institution you use. So there are a few discount brokers that don't charge any trading fees. There's one we use, Quest Trade, which charge $4.95. We also use TD, which charges $9.99. So commission is something you don't want to pay so much. What I usually do is making sure the commission is less than 1% of the overall transaction cost.
Yeah.
So usually when we trade, we trade more than $1,000 at a time, or or so on. So that's the idea. Now with these free commission trading brokers is great. That those are like game changer, especially when you're young and you don't have a lot of assets sitting around. That allows you to build your portfolio slowly over time and allow you to build like small amount of money, right? So that's kind of nice.
Cool. So you touched on it earlier, and I think this kind of inspires a lot of people that you are close to reaching financial independence. I think you set a target of 2025, but you mentioned you're closer to that. How did you calculate that, and did it stick? Did it go to your plan? When from day one, did it kind of go to how you planned it to be?
Yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned I'm a bit of an Excel nerd, so I did a lot of simulation and calculation. We've been tracking our expenses since 2011, and over time we found that we spend about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. It's been in the lower side of the 50,000. So I've always thought, if our dividend if we could generate about 50 to 60,000 in terms of dividends, we're good, right? And then, I haven't published my December dividend income, but in 2022 we received a little bit over $42,000 in dividends. Now that's including U.S. and Canadian dividends, and for U.S. I don't exchange it back to Canadian currency. I just do 1-to-1, just keep the math easier, because when your currency is fluctuating over time, it kind of gives either arbitrarily inflates your dividend income or deflates it a little bit. So I just do 1-to-1. So yeah, we receive a little bit over $42,000 in 2022. So if you really convert the US to Canadian, it would be higher. But if we look at our core expenses, it actually, that 42,000 covered over 100% of our core expenses last year, right? And by core expense, I mean like the expenses like grocery, utilities, housing, stuff like that. Not the non-discretionary expenses. By that I mean, like eating out, massages or vacation or charitable donations and educational courses. So from a dividend income like living off dividend income point of view, we're getting pretty close because our dividend income could supplement our core expenses. Right.
Yeah. So you're really covering your needs effectively, and your wants are still like something to think about, I guess.
Exactly, but we're getting there. And plus, if we when I talk about, I know FIRE is a very big movement, but for us, it's always been, hey, let's reach financial independence, and we'll decide what we want to do. I don't think we'll ever, just stop working all of a sudden, right? It's about doing things that you enjoy doing, whether you make income or not. That's kind of like a bonus.
Yeah.
So for us, at least initially, even if our dividend income could cover all of our expenses, we'll still continue working part-time probably. So there's that buffer, that flexibility there.
Yeah, and I think the community actually agrees a lot with you in the thinking here, because I put a poll actually this week about this, and it asked like, what will you do once your passive income covers your expenses? And actually 44% voted with keeping the job. Yeah, and then 27% said change the job, and only 22% said quit work. And that's really interesting, right? Because I think many people seek more the financial freedom part of it, that they are free in mind and can make the choices they want, rather than lying at a beach drinking margaritas, right? I think we will probably all enjoy that for 2 weeks, but not for 365 days a year.
I think it just gives you more options, right?
Yeah.
You're not too, like, for example, if you have a dividend portfolio generating $50,000 a year, and you just see that you work at Google and you just see this layoff, you're like, well, so what? If you get laid off, you might get a package, right? So either way is fine. You could stay on your job and make a lot of money because you work at Google, or you get laid off, you get a nice package, and you live off your dividends. So again, you're not no longer so worried about your job, because for a lot of people, your job is your primarily, like, the key income, right? So when you're generating your own income, lots of options open up for you.
Yeah, for me it was actually quite a game changer already early on in the journey, because being free from debt, let's say, and being free from worries about money because you have your freedom fund, also makes me really resilient to these kinds of things at work. Because like you say, okay, package, or if and then what? Okay, I'll just boost my dividend income and find a new job, right? But it made me not worry about these kinds of things, and I think it makes people generally also more mentally stable at work. If you're, let's say, how we say it in Europe, leveraged to the tits with a mortgage, and then you need to depend on every cent that comes in, that's of course, really adding to the stress for many people. So just financial freedom already, I think, is really liberating.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you're effectively there pretty much. But was there any struggles along the way? There must have been some sort of struggles, or did you suffer FOMO when we have this high growth investing phase or anything like that? What was the biggest struggle you found?
Well, I think the biggest struggle for me personally, I've always been a saver. Like, I try to save as much as I can, and that's probably from growing up in an Asian family. Like, saving is like driven into our mind from early on, right? And my wife, coming from Denmark, she's pretty good with saving as well, but probably not as extreme as me. Like, I was pretty extreme, and with Denmark, there's this concept called hygge. You probably heard about it. It's about, like, enjoying life and really, sit down and, enjoy the nice moments in life. And, when we start dating and when we got married, like, one of the things that I really struggle is, spending the money on these nice things, right? It's not like big expenses, but like, go out for a nice coffee, or go out to a bakery and just sit down and enjoy the bakery, or go for chocolate. I was like, well, we could invest that money instead of eating these things. But over time, I understand it's not about just chasing that that investing mentality, that extra income is also, you need to be able to enjoy your life now. And that message really became really important, especially through work and with my friends. Like, I've a few coworkers and friends like died unexpectedly, so that it's very sad, and that really reinforced the message, because like we kind of take it granted that we'll just wake up tomorrow, but you don't know, right? Like there's no guarantee,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that it's a good way to go because there's no suffering because you just die in your sleep. But if you don't enjoy your life now, you're always thinking about tomorrow, and you'll just do this thing next time, or that it's not healthy, right? So that's kind of my biggest struggle, is like, how do we allocate our money such that we're investing for the future, but also enjoy our present life right now. And over time, that has shifted a bit for me. So that was probably the biggest struggle in terms of this investing journey.
Sort of like a pay yourself first, but also in an enjoyment kind of sense.
Exactly. Like you could pay yourself first, and then you kind of like, and then I want to save like 99% of that income left over. But it's like, well, that's not how it works, right?
Well, to also benefit from that view on life, I would definitely recommend having a look at Service Corporation International. I don't know if you know them, but it's a dividend stock from the US. It yields 1.5% approximately, but they are really in the funeral and cemetery business. So they do everything in this end to end. So when a person dies, they can look after everything, and they charge a lot, even up to the flowers. So from that point of view, I think it's a really stable business, specifically with the boomers coming up. So it might be a good stock
just
pick
on
here.
the same idea as kind of like retirement homes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
although
exactly.
The retirement homes got hit pretty badly during the COVID times, or when COVID started, because they were just not ready to handle COVID. But that's another industry, I think.
Well, I think they died already before they came, for instance, to the last mile house, right? So I am investing in Omega Healthcare. Yes, they're of course under severe stress here. Yeah, but I mean, it really resonates, right? I think, and I know I see this more in the community, having a saver's mindset sometimes also. So one is enjoying life, right, and being in the moment instead of borrowing it from the future, I guess, as we say. But also what I observed is, because I have that also a bit this frugal mindset, there is also therefore not willing to overpay for stocks and not always appreciating the quality of a stock. And I see that in my portfolio as well. From the early days, I've got more like the higher yield is in there, or the turnaround plays, and just hoping that the company would turn around. And so there's still a learning curve that I'm currently going through. Have you also experienced such kind of things here?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you know how when you buy stocks, you could either do market order or limit, right? And early on during my investing career, I would be like set the limit to like 5 cents or 10 cents under the ask price, right? Or something, and thinking that I want to really get the best price possible. But I wrote an article on my blog, and I can't remember the title of it, but it kind of talks about this, right? So, for example, say you believe in Apple, you think Apple is such a good business, is going to continue to grow and bring in revenue and pay dividends over the next 10, 20 years. And say Apple is at $150 right now. And for the life of you, you think you only want to get into Apple at $110 a share. And you're just waiting for that price to hit before you hit the buy button. And say one day Apple all of a sudden drops to $111, but it's $1 off your price target. And you're just like, you're so set on this price target. You're like, I'm not buying anything. I'm going to wait for 110. And then the next day the price goes up, and it keeps going up for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
would you be kicking yourself for
Yeah,
missing
of
this
course.
opportunity?
Of
Right?
course.
So there's this, price target, but there's also, on the other hand, it's also about this overall market, the company,
Mm.
and the future profitability, right? Because obviously you don't want to buy something that's way overpriced. So if I don't know, if Microsoft is trading at $600, a P ratio of 70, that's probably not something you want to buy right now. But if it's
No.
historically it's been trading at 20, and like $1 or $2 or 50 cents here and there, a penny here and there, it's not going to matter in the long run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What matters is if you're actually invested in that company and reaping the benefit of being a shareholder, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't hold it, you don't collect the dividends. Right?
Yeah, that's true. So how I try to fight this is actually sometimes if I see myself doing this behavior, because I have the tendency to do this, I either buy directly and then think like, then I'll just don't go for an expensive lunch or something like that to compensate it, so that I still get this quality business. Or I just start calculating, how would it look like with a 7% dividend hike, which might come up in the next quarter, right? Because often
Right.
also yield is a combination of my buying price as well at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, that helps me a lot too.
Another example is like some people say they only buy when the market's down on that day, right? but it's like, well, if it's down today and you buy it, how do you know it's not going to go down more tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or if the market is up and they're like, oh, I'll wait for the next day, how do you for sure know the market will go down next day? That's kind of, it goes to the question of, do you do a lump sum investment, or do you spread it out, right? Say if you have a big chunk of money, do you lump sum it, or you spread it out? And again, I wrote about this on my blog. I think it comes down to what kind of investor you are.
Mhm.
For me, I sleep better at night if I just do a lump sum, because I stop second guessing myself. But some people like to spread it out, which is fine. But I wrote about this on the blog, and I do coaching on the side as well. I tell my clients is that if you want to spread it out, fine, but set up a rule and make sure you follow the rule flawlessly. Because say you want to spread it out, so set up a rule saying, I want to invest X amount of money on, I don't know, the second Wednesday every month, and just do it. Because the danger here is if you spread it out and you tell yourself, oh, I'll buy on the second Wednesday every month, and then that Wednesday the stock market tanks by 20%. You're like, oh, I'll just wait another day, see if it tanks more. And then you keep waiting, or vice versa. It goes up 20%. You're like, oh, I'll just wait another day, see if it comes down so I could get something cheaper, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like that. And so it just find a business that you think is going to be profitable. Make sure your valuation isn't out of whack, and then just figure out your entry point, right? Like if you have, it's better to, my view is it's better to have money invested than sitting on the sideline for a very, very long time.
Yeah,
right?
true.
So for example, in February 2020, when COVID was started to spread, there's a lot of uncertainty, the market started tanking. We put in a lot of money in at that time. There were a lot of discussion with my dad and friends. They were like, should we sell now and then invest later when the market tanks or bottoms? I'm like, well, you don't know where the bottom is. So during that time, we kept buying on the way down. And then I think the market bottomed out around March 20th or 21st. I think we didn't buy anything on that specific bottom day, but we bought like maybe a day before and a day after, or within that window. And if you look at our purchases in 2020, I think we're up like 25% or more as of today.
Yeah, that was a golden time to buy.
Yeah, it's a golden time to buy when again, Warren Buffett's I think he had a quote is like I don't know, be fearful when I can't remember the quote, but it's basically
Yeah.
take the opportunity when people are scared. That's the opportunity to buy things.
Yeah, I would love to go back to that time. No, but you make a good point about lump sum. So because we get bonuses at work, what I usually do is just I top up my money on a monthly basis. So I split it out over 12 months every year. I top up my monthly investment account, and that's what I just invest. But you're right, you need to have the discipline for it. If you don't have the discipline for it, yeah, then I think you don't benefit from how you call it, the time value of money. Yeah, because you will be just like your money will be doing nothing, and the stocks will just going up, and you in a bull market, right? And you will only feel more like, oh, I should have invested earlier. Let's now wait for a down day.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I really regret was back in, again, financial crisis. That's when I started really working in started my career. And back then, I think like Royal Bank, like the Canadian banks went down significantly, right? Because the financial crisis. I think I'm just looking up right now. I want to say Royal Bank was around $30 at one point per share. And I distinctly remember my manager said he's planning to just, go all in on the Canadian banks because that was like the golden opportunity. I did go in. I think I rolled about, it was around at one point it was like less than $30. I think I bought something around 30, the low 30s, and then it went up to like, I don't know, mid 30s or a little bit under 40. And I panicked, I sold. But back then, if I knew, I should have just bought like the Canadian banks like crazy, right? Because if you look at it, if you could have bought at $30, right now is a little bit over 130. You're looking at 4 times plus all the dividends, right?
Yeah, crazy.
I think it's a good time to ask you. I mean, as Europeans, we have very different views on banks, particularly after the financial crisis. But we hear a lot about Canadian banks. What makes them different?
Yeah, I think Canadian banks are well regulated. First of all, I mean, if you look at the financial crisis, they were like, if you look at the American banks, they all cut dividends and suffer a lot. The Canadian banks did not cut dividends, or at least the big 5, the TD, Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, CIBC, and Royal Bank. All these 5 companies have been paying dividends, uninterrupted dividends, since the late 1800s. Now, let me repeat that again. Uninterrupted dividends since the late 1800s. Last time I checked, that's over 200 years. Uninterrupted. Sure, they don't raise dividends every single year, but they kept paying for the last over 200 years. I mean, that's a pretty good track record, right? Whereas you look at the American banks, a lot of them stop paying dividends. I think the European banks as well. Now, obviously, with the high mortgage in Canada, that's always a concern. But I think the Canadian banks are relatively conservative. They've been putting money aside in case there's any defaults and stuff like that. And that's why they did during the first couple of years of COVID. They put aside billions of dollars for loan reserves in case loans get defaulted. And turns out they didn't need that much money. So what happened last year? They raised their dividend payout significantly higher than usual. And who gets rewarded? The shareholders. Right?
Yeah. And I said, from what business are Canadian banks mostly earning, and what are the growth factors that makes this sustainable growth?
Yeah, a lot of the Canadian banks are in the US now, right? Like the rapid fire, you asked me BMO versus TD. I picked TD because TD is, I think now, is one of the big banks in the States, right? Royal Bank, not just in Canada, but in US, and they also have some branches in Europe as well. So they're growing internationally. another thing to consider with banks, at least my point of view, like with Canadians, a lot of times you start banking because your parents bank with the same bank, and then the likelihood for people to switch banks is not very high. You rarely hear people switching banks regularly, right? Maybe once or twice, but very, very rare. So these Canadian banks have a very, call it, loyal customer base. And what's the bank's business model? They take in your money and then they loan out money to other people and then make money that way, right? So if banks are not making enough money, they'll just raise the minimum deposit requirement, or they raise the monthly fee. That seems like a very easy business model to me. So that makes sense to me. Now the other European banks and American banks, that may be a different story, right?
Yeah, I think also for the European banks and such, you just need to go to the violation tracker. And I think it shows also a story, because over the years, a lot of fraud has happened over here. And I think in America as well, I believe is Wells Fargo, I think is a really great example where what did they needed? 7 or 8 accounts per individual. And many of them were fake, and people getting into financial problems even because of that. So there's maybe also something in the culture that is based on greed and such that might be more specific in Europe and even America, I think.
Cool. We might ask one more question, just finish with a little bit of a European flavor. We know your wife is Danish. Do you own any Danish stocks in your portfolio?
She does on her side.
Good.
I think her dad invests, I think, like Danish bank or something, but that's doing terrible. And I don't think it pays any dividends. So she just holds them because she got them like when she was young. But other than that, we don't specifically invest in any Danish stocks. I was looking at Novo Nordisk.
Yes.
Thought about it, but just always found there's other companies that's better than investing in NVO. So I mean, that stock seems to have done well over the last 5 years. I'm just looking at the
Novo Nordisk is probably the most iconic and best Danish stock out there.
Yeah.
Because it does everything around, what is it? Is it diabetes? Yeah, I believe everything around diabetes and such. So and that's of course also a growing disease area, and they have just the best products to fight that. The thing is just the price of the share price. It's so hot all the time that it's really hard to find an opportunity to buy it. And once it dips, you're in a candy store, and then Novo Nordisk does still not, from a yield perspective, maybe look attractive. And that's the issue sometimes as well, right? Let's say at the bottom of a market, we just refer to 2020. We often say like, we want to buy the highest quality stocks at the bottom of a market. But then, they go maybe from a 1% yield to 2.5% yield, but then you have all these 3% yield is at 5% yield. So this is really difficult, right? Because it's a big candy store at that moment in time. And that's why I guess Novo Nordisk doesn't pop up so easily.
And that's what I meant, is like when the opportunity comes, there's always seem to be other stocks that are more attractive than Novo Nordisk, right?
Yeah, nice one. Well, I think it's something really for the wish list. I would recommend your wife at a certain moment, even just to as a kind of a patriot, just buy one share or something like that.
Yeah.
And I forgot also still a question, because on your blog you mentioned like once you would reach that financial independence level, there was something around living in some different countries around the world. I'm just curious, like what kind of country skips your mind where you would like to just spend some time for a while?
Well, we wanted to live in. I'm from Taiwan, so we wanted to live in Taiwan for like a year or two. We also would love to move back to Denmark for a year or two, just for kids' sake, learning the language, and just get to know. They could learn about what Denmark is like or Taiwan is like. Obviously, that's the ideal situation, but with taxes, it becomes a bit tricky. I think living somewhere in Southeast Asia would be awesome, like Vietnam or Thailand. Well, maybe not Vietnam. Thailand is one hop spot for a lot of the retirees. Even South America, right? Like Argentina, I heard really good things about it. Even some of the Eastern European countries where the cost is ultra low. I think we always love traveling around. So I think being sort of location independent would be awesome. But I don't know if it's a realistic goal at this point, especially having two little kids, and they probably want some sort of stability a little bit as they grow up. So we'll see. We don't have a set plan. We kind of will see how everything goes and figure out as we go.
Well, the nice thing is, I believe Portugal is really attractive to live as an investor, and also Spain has introduced some laws, I believe, to support digital nomads in a really tax-friendly manner. So also really nice country.
I think for me to live in EU, I had to figure out my visa situation because my wife has a Danish passport, so do my kids. So I'm kind of the only one that can stay in the EU for extended time. So we need to figure out. And the Danes have very, very strict policies in terms of letting people stay in the country for extended period of time. So we just have to figure out the different rules. And
so most European countries, if you're married to the national, to the local, you get automatically via marriage. You can also get your permit. I'm an example of that.
Yeah, that was the same case for Canadians, but that's not how the Danes work. We have seen news about like say American marry a Dane and live in Denmark for 10 years and just got kicked out of the country because they changed their rules, it's a shame.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. Good. I think we came to the end of the show, right? With with the last question.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's actually longer than I anticipated, but it's been this really good discussion. It's always fun talking about dividends.
I agree. It's always fun to talk about dividends. Sometimes time just flies. We find ourselves in the beginning, we thought we'd keep podcasts to about 30 minutes, and it's never been the case. It's always an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So this is quite normal actually for them to be this long, but it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I think listening to your journey, where you are, and some of the insights you're given, pretty knowledgeable. So we appreciate you taking the time and spending two hours of your life chatting to us. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I appreciate that.
And Bob, we will for the listeners also, we'll put your blog article, your blog linked in the description of this podcast. So if you're interested, definitely give him a visit. We'll also put your social media links on there so that people can follow you, are interesting to continue to engage with you. And maybe we'll also pick one or two of those articles out that you referred to, Bob, and also put them here in the link to the description, because our listeners are often very interested to read up on what we've been mentioning. So I'll make sure that everything is as much as possible in there. I think we'll not be able to put all the tickers in today. That would be that we discussed. That would be a bit too much. So please bear with us on that one. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was really awesome.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
Good. So to everyone then, thanks for staying with us. And I hope, because maybe for you, many people listen us while running. So I hope they got a decent amount of kilometers in today. So and to everyone, see you next week.
See you all soon. Remember, both of us at Dividend Talk are not certified financial specialists through formal education. We are just two guys sharing our journey for inspiration and entertainment purposes. Hence, this is not investment advice. Although we do our best, we can't promise that the information discussed is always correct, nor appropriate for you or anybody else. We always recommend that you do your own due diligence and be accountable for your own choices. As we always say, you can't borrow conviction from others. Last but not least, by listening to our podcast, you agree to hold us harmless from any ramifications, financial or otherwise, that occur to you as a result of acting on information provided in this podcast.